Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching. The channel's called Ratchet. My name's Andrew, and on this episode, I get the car fired up and it goes off to the dyno. Run the title. Welcome to the channel if you're new. If you're not, thank you for tuning back in for yet another episode. I can't lie, this episode's an absolute mammoth. There's so much going on. I'm really excited to share everything with you. So first of all, I'm going to get through a load of little jobs that I've ticked off of the list over the winter. Just little odds and sods, just as the car continues to evolve, iron out a few little creases, add a few little bit more details here and there. So I will bring you all of those. Then we move on to the main event, which is getting this car fired up. Now I've got these quad 48s fitted. And then finally, I was going to split this down into 2 episodes, but I thought, what's the point? Let's just share it all with you in one huge big bumper episode. The car goes off to the dyno for a full tune, balance, carb setup, and then we get down to the power runs. So have a little think in your mind what this car might make in terms of BHP and foot-pounds. Not as much as you think, not going to lie. I'm not going to overbuild the suspense of the dyno pulls, but the car absolutely sings and I cannot wait to get out there on the road and start giving it a bit of a hammering. So I think without further ado, let's crack on with the episode. Let me run you through all of these little jobs that I've been ticking off of the list. The first one being is yet another set of seat mounts for my driver's side seat. I think I'm on revision 3 now. Basically, I've just been toying around with trying to get the seat as far back and as far reclined and as low down as possible to give me as much knee room to the underside of the dash as possible. Next on the list, I wanted to sound deaden the doors. Now, initially, I was only going to do around the door catch, which would give the door a bit more of a thud when it closed, but I ended up doing the entire doors. What difference it makes, who knows? Also, what I did do was add a spring to the internal door release. It keeps it in that open position, so when you do press the latch to open the door, it has this nice satisfying little spring back into its initial position. Next item was I needed to make myself a clutch stop. Now, I've completely reworked this whole pedal assembly. I've now fitted a pedal box. Initial findings are it looks to be doing the job. There is the option there to give it a tweak if needed. And finally, I've added a very thin L-channel brace to the front edge of the scuttle panel. How I open the front clam, I end up leaning on this front edge, which was causing a small amount of distortion to the paneling. I drilled out all of the riv nuts along that front edge, fitted up this small little 20 by 5mm L-channel, and then riv nutted through. It's also held into place with some panel sealant, and it has made this area very stout. And when I do open the clam, there is no deforming of that panel anymore. So that's an absolute result and something that I was really happy to get done. I'm just running through the last few jobs needed to try and get this thing fired into life. I'm waiting on a 90-degree elbow fitting for my catch can to enable me to fit that down on that rear chassis brace. Coming inside, I've got all of the hoses, pipes and Jubilee clips buttoned up and back into place. The system is pretty much filled with coolant. I will have to bleed it when the car's running, but there is 95% of the coolant black in the system, and the distributor is back in its correct place with the HT leads connected back onto the spark plugs. So should, fingers crossed, I have a successful first start and let the car idle for a decent amount of time and it shows no leaks, it'll allow me to get the interior buttoned up, get this bulkhead panel back on and the seats back into the car. So it'll feel like a real nice milestone and really feel like I'm on the final home stretch. Now, just coming back over to the carbs, I'm going to try and get the car started without making any adjustments to the carburetors themselves, basically as they came out of the box. Now, the reason being is I mentioned in the last video that I have no experience in adjusting carburetors, and the last thing I want to do is try and cut my teeth adjusting all 4 of these. So I'm just going to see what happens, in all honesty, and see if this thing will fire up. I did mention that I have got a rolling road day booked with a carb tuning specialist. So they're going to take care of all of the real fine details. So the car's going to get trailered over there, full setup, and really get it ready for the road, because I don't want to try and guess this stuff. I don't have the confidence in myself. And I think that will make me feel happiest about this whole situation. So I think there's nothing more stopping me from trying to get this thing cranked over. So let's see how that goes. Unbelievable. I think the smile on my face kind of says it all. Now, no word of a lie, this is no camera trickery. There was no hours spent trying to get it started. It really was fill the float bowls with fuel, press the start button, and it went. I'm amazed, over the moon, and everything else in between. I'm so happy. Now, how they are set, if they are, you know, there or thereabouts, I don't care. I know the car runs, and I know it can then go for its rolling road setup, at least knowing it can run. So I am buzzing. I let the car run for, don't know, maybe getting on for 10 minutes or so. Let the temps come up. Turned it off, let it cool down, and I've had a look down the front of the engine, on the floor of the garage. In it, everything seems to be leak free at the moment, so I'm so happy about that. That does mean that I can get the rear bulkhead panel on, I can get the seats back in the car. This was a real sort of icing on the cake moment, getting these carbs fitted, and yeah, it's all panned out better than I could ever imagine. So let me get this smile off my face, because my cheeks are starting to hurt. Let me go and do some work on the car, and I will catch you in a bit. Very long story short, I was recommended Page Motorsport. It turns out they were only 10 or 12 miles away from where I live, which was an absolute result. So a good look through their website, good stalk through their Facebook page. It was clear they were the right company for the job. So I sent them a message and got booked in with them as soon as they had available space. Be sure to go and check out Page yourself. They've got Facebook, Instagram, and obviously their own website. I can't recommend them highly enough, and you'll see that the proof is in the pudding when we get to the dyno runs. Sorely tempted to drive the car over there myself. I did talk myself out of it and arrange for a local car transporter to take the car over there for me. So let's get down to business. The car was pulled into the dyno room and strapped down onto the rollers. We took the decision pretty quickly to remove the rear clam to give better access to the back end of the car. Dan then started by setting the ignition timing on a base setting, so he could then go on, set all of the air idle jets and get all 4 of the carbs balanced. Now, this was a pretty lengthy job in itself, and something I would never have the ability to do. So I'm really glad I did take this decision to allow a specialist to really tune up these carbs to get the best out of them as possible. Dan did mention that the fuel jetting was absolutely perfect for the engine specification. When I placed the order with Webcon, I gave them a build breakdown of my motor. So they built up these carbs with the correct jets. They gave the exact fueling parameters that were necessary to keep this engine nice and happy. So after all that was done, we then moved on to the power runs, where Dan mucked around with the position of the distributor to optimise the power.
Round 1. Round 2. Round 3. Round 4.
So there you go, the dust has settled, the car's back together and back safely in the garage. Now I chose to have it transported back because I wanted to carry out a final nut, bolt, hose and clip check before hitting the road. I can't thank Dan enough at Page Motorsport for the work that he did put in to the car. His experience was worth its absolute weight in gold. You know, there's been some decisions where I've said, right, I just need to farm this out to professional, and this was one of those times. I wouldn't have stood a chance of getting these things balanced. So I'm very glad I took the decision that I actually did. Now you'll see from those numbers that they're not crazy, and I wasn't chasing huge numbers. You know, this engine isn't about bragging rights. It is about, well, the look, it's about the sound, and it is about the drivability. Now, seeing those numbers and talking to Dan, he just says we're in a real sweet spot for this engine. You know, it's not overly stressed, it's not pushing it to its limits, so it should, all being well, lead a very happy life, looking the absolute nuts, sounding crazy, and doing everything that I would ask it to. So I couldn't be happier, in all honesty. Now, if you have liked this video, then please consider hitting the subscribe button below. Leave me a comment. Always enjoy what you guys have got to say about the build, especially those that have been in this since day one. There has been just a crazy, crazy journey that this thing has gone on. So the next video, it's got to be going for a drive, I would have thought. As soon as there's that faintest glimmer of sunshine and the roads aren't covered in mud, I'm going to be out there getting used to what this thing feels like, because I'm sure it's going to feel like a different animal. So I cannot wait for that, and I will be sure to share it with you guys. So up until that point, I'll catch you next time.